A 7-year-old bursts into the mansion, trembling, begging a feared Mafia boss to follow her home. He goes, expecting a child's trouble, but what he finds inside a shabby apartment stops him cold. A woman fighting to protect the child, bruised and hiding a secret tied to his blood. He brings them to safety, and the quiet house becomes a war zone overnight when a rival uses that secret like a blade. Love, violence, and a terrible choice collide. Will protection become possession, or will saving her destroy them all? What would you do if the man who could save you was also the only one who could ruin you? The night air hung thick with late summer heat as Luca followed Maya's small form through the winding streets. Her pink sneakers, scuffed and worn, barely made a sound against the pavement. Every few steps she'd glance back at him, her eyes wide with a mix of trust and desperation that stirred something uncomfortable in his chest. He'd seen her before, this little wisp of a girl, playing hopscotch near Bella Rosa, his most profitable restaurant front. She'd wave sometimes, fearless in that way only children could be, even as his men tensed at her proximity. He'd never acknowledged her, wouldn't have tonight either, if not for the tears streaming down her face when she'd pounded on his door. "It's just up here," Maya whispered, her voice trembling. She clutched the hem of her oversized t-shirt, decorated with faded unicorns. "Please hurry!" Luca's hand instinctively moved toward the concealed weapon at his back. 20 years of surviving in this business had honed his instincts to razor sharpness. Something was wrong. The street was too quiet, the shadows too deep between the flickering street lamps. The shouting grew louder as they approached the dilapidated building. Paint peeled from its walls like dying skin, and half the security lights were burned out. The kind of place that spoke of desperate choices and dead ends, not the sort of territory where Luca Veroni usually ventured without backup. Maya's tiny fingers suddenly gripped his sleeve. "My mom," she choked out. "She needs help." A woman's voice pierced through the thin walls, followed by the distinct sound of something shattering. Luca's jaw clenched. He wasn't a hero, far from it. His reputation was built on calculated cruelty, on being the monster other monsters feared. But the way Maya's hand trembled against his arm made his chest tighten with an unfamiliar protective fury. "Which floor?" he asked, his voice low and controlled. "Third," Maya whispered. Apartment 3C. The stairwell reeked of stale cigarettes and mildew. Their footsteps echoed off concrete walls covered in graffiti. And somewhere above, a baby was crying. Maya led him up, her breathing quick and shallow like a trapped bird's. Another crash echoed down the stairwell, followed by a man's angry voice. Maya flinched, nearly missing a step. Without thinking, Luca steadied her with a hand on her shoulder. Her whole body was shaking now. They reached the third-floor landing, and the shouting became clearer. A man's voice, slurred with alcohol or something worse, was making threats that made Luca's trigger finger itch. He could make out a woman's voice, too. Younger, desperate, but defiant. Maya pressed herself against the wall next to 3C's door, her small face pinched with fear and worry. The fluorescent light above them flickered erratically, casting strange shadows across her tear-stained cheeks. "Stay here," Luca commanded softly, positioning himself between Maya and the door. The girl nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. Through the thin walls, he could hear the chaos inside more clearly now. The sound of heavy footsteps, more breaking glass, and a woman's voice growing increasingly panicked. "Get out!" the woman shouted. "I told you never to come back here. You don't tell me what to do, you stupid!" The man's voice cut off with the sound of something heavy hitting a wall. Luca's hand moved to the door handle, testing it. Locked. But the cheap lock wouldn't be a challenge. The entire frame looked ready to give way at the slightest pressure. Behind him, Maya made a small, frightened sound. He turned to look at her, this brave, terrified child who'd run through the night to find help. Who, for some unfathomable reason, had chosen him. A man whose name was whispered in fear across the city. Her faith in him was misplaced, but something in him refused to disappoint it. More shouting erupted from inside the apartment. The man's voice was getting louder, more violent. The woman cried out in pain. Luca's patience snapped. He'd built his empire on control, on careful calculation of every move. But right now, with Maya trembling behind him and some worthless piece of garbage threatening a woman on his territory, calculation could wait. The lock gave way with one precise kick. The door crashed open, revealing a small apartment in chaos. Broken glass littered the floor, glinting in the dim light like scattered stars. The air was thick with tension and fear, and there, in the middle of it all, stood a woman with fire in her eyes and blood on her lip, facing down a man twice her size. Her stance was protective, placing herself between the threat and what Luca assumed was Maya's bedroom door. Despite her obvious fear, there was steel in her spine. The scene froze for a moment as all eyes turned to him. The woman's gaze flickered between him and the doorway where Maya stood partially hidden. Her eyes widened with recognition, not of him, but of what he represented. The careful way he stood, the expensive cut of his clothes, the cold authority in his stance. She knew instantly that death had just walked through her door. The drunk man, however, was too far gone to recognize the danger. He wheeled around, face flushed with anger and chemical courage. "Who the fuck are you?" Luca said nothing. He didn't need to. His silence filled the room, like smoke choking out everything else. His eyes took in every detail: the woman's defensive posture, the overturned furniture, the half-empty bottle on the counter. Each observation fed the cold rage building in his chest. Maya's mother. She had to be. They shared the same determined set to their chin, used the distraction to edge closer to the door. Her eyes met Luca's for a brief moment, a silent communication passing between them. She was afraid, yes, but not of him. Not yet. The drunk man took a stumbling step forward, pointing a shaking finger at Luca. "This is none of your business. Get out before—" Luca's mere presence seemed to bend the room's atmosphere, like gravity suddenly pulling toward a black hole. The drunk's words died in his throat as survival instinct finally broke through his drug-addled haze. But it was too late. The moment he'd raised his hand to the woman, his fate had been sealed. The stairwell reeked of mildew and despair, its walls marked with graffiti and years of neglect. Each step creaked under Luca's weight as he followed Maya's small form upward. The girl moved with the practiced ease of someone who'd climbed these stairs countless times, her sneakers barely making a sound. Through the thin walls, voices grew clearer as they approached the third floor. A man's slurred threats mixed with a woman's firm but frightened tone. Maya's pace quickened, her little hands balled into fists at her sides. The scene at apartment 3C made Luca's jaw clench. A man swayed in the doorway, his bulk blocking most of the view inside. Opposite him stood a woman, clearly Maya's mother, her stance defensive but unwavering, even disheveled, with her honey-brown hair falling from its tie, and her work uniform wrinkled. She carried herself with quiet dignity. "I told you to stay away," she was saying, her voice low but steady. "The restraining order—" "Screw your piece of paper," the man sneered, placing his hand against the doorframe to steady himself. "You can't keep—" He never finished the sentence. Maya darted past Luca, calling out, "Mommy!" The man's bloodshot eyes widened as they tracked from the child to Luca's imposing figure behind her. Something in Luca's expression, or perhaps the calculated way he stood, radiating controlled violence, made the drunk's face drain of color. Without another word, he stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet in his haste to escape. His heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway as he fled, punctuated by the distant slam of the stairwell door. Maya threw herself into her mother's arms. "I'm sorry, Mommy. He came back again and I was scared, so I went to get help." The woman, Adelia, according to the mailbox Luca had noticed downstairs, held Maya tight, but her eyes never left Luca. They were remarkable eyes, he noted clinically, a shade of green that reminded him of sea glass. Currently, they were filled with wariness and something else. Embarrassment? Perhaps. "Thank you for walking her back," Adelia said carefully, straightening up but keeping Maya close. "I'm sorry she bothered you. Everything's fine now." It wasn't a suggestion, it was a clear dismissal. But Luca had never been good at following other people's scripts. "Is it?" he asked quietly, taking a deliberate step forward. Adelia tensed but held her ground as he moved past her into the apartment. The space was small but had once been well kept. Now, subtle signs of violence marked the walls and furniture, a fresh dent in the drywall, a toppled chair that hadn't been righted, scuff marks on the baseboards where something, or someone, had been kicked. More telling were the defensive modifications. A new deadbolt installed somewhat clumsily, heavy curtains drawn tight, a baseball bat poorly hidden behind the coat rack. This wasn't the first time the drunk had come calling, and it wouldn't be the last. "Please," Adelia said, her voice tight. "You don't need to—" "Pack what you need," Luca interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. His eyes met hers, held them. "Both of you." Color rose in Adelia's cheeks. "I appreciate your concern, but we're fine. Maya shouldn't have—" "Mommy," Maya tugged at her mother's shirt. "He's nice. He has the restaurant where they make the good bread, remember? The one where they gave me cookies that one time?" Something flickered across Adelia's face. Recognition, perhaps, or deeper concern. Her eyes darted to the window, then back to Luca, reassessing him with new understanding. "You're Luca Verone." It wasn't a question. The way she said his name told him she knew exactly who he was, what he was. Her arm tightened around Maya protectively. "Yes," he replied simply. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken implications. Adelia's fingers worried the hem of her shirt, a nervous tell she quickly stilled when she noticed his attention. "We can't," she started. "That wasn't a request." Luca's voice remained soft, but steel threaded through each word. "The man knows where you live. He's drunk enough to be stupid, sober enough to be dangerous. Next time, Maya might not reach me in time." Adelia flinched at that, her composure cracking slightly. She looked down at Maya, who was watching their exchange with wide eyes, still pressed against her mother's side. "I have work in the morning." Adelia tried again, but the protest sounded weak even to her own ears. "Maya has school. Both can wait." Luca moved further into the apartment, his presence filling the small space like smoke. He noted the family photos on the walls, the schoolwork proudly displayed on the refrigerator, the worn but clean furniture. They had built a life here, humble but their own. He understood her reluctance to leave it, even temporarily. But he also understood men like the drunk. They mistook kindness for weakness, restraint for fear. They always came back, each time more dangerous than the last. 5 minutes, he said, softening his tone slightly. "Pack essentials only. The rest can be collected later." Maya looked up at her mother, hope and fear warring in her expression. "Can we, Mommy? Please. I don't want him to come back again." Adelia closed her eyes briefly, her shoulders sagging with the weight of the decision. When she opened them, Luca saw resignation there, mixed with a fierce determination he recognized, the look of someone choosing the least dangerous option in a field of bad choices. "Maya, go pack your backpack," she said finally. "School clothes and your special bear. Quick now." The girl darted off to her room, leaving Adelia alone with Luca. She met his gaze steadily, chin lifted in quiet defiance. "I want to be very clear," she said, her voice low enough that Maya wouldn't hear. "I don't know what this is, but we're not yours to save. We won't owe you anything." Luca allowed himself a small smile, more predatory than amused. "Pack your bag, Adelia." She held his stare for another moment before turning away, her movements sharp with suppressed anger or fear, possibly both. Luca remained where he stood, listening to the sounds of hurried packing from both bedrooms, his mind already plotting security arrangements and contingencies. The drunk would be back. Of that he was certain. But by then this apartment would be empty, its occupants safely tucked away where no one could reach them without going through him first. "Pack what you need," he repeated softly. "Both of you." Addie's hands trembled as she stuffed clothes into a worn duffel bag, her movements jerky with suppressed emotion. From Maya's room came the sound of drawers opening and closing, punctuated by the soft thump of items being tossed into her backpack. "This isn't necessary," she called out, loud enough for Luca to hear from the living room. "We can handle—" "You can't." His voice carried through the thin walls, matter-of-fact and cold. "And we both know it." She yanked open another drawer, shoving underwear and socks inside the bag. Pride warred with practicality in her chest. The man who'd shown up tonight, Jimmy, her ex's drinking buddy, had been getting bolder, more aggressive. The baseball bat by the door wouldn't be enough next time. But owing someone like Luca Veroni? The thought made her stomach turn. She stepped into the hallway, bag in hand. "Look, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but—" "Mommy?" Maya appeared beside her, clutching her teddy bear and wearing her backpack. "Please, can we go? I don't like it when the bad man comes." Addie's heart cracked. She knelt down, smoothing Maya's hair. "Baby, it's not that simple. Mr. Verone is— We can't just—" "Can't just what?" Luca's quiet voice made her spine stiffen. "Accept help when it's offered. Choose safety over pride." She stood, turning to face him. "Accept a debt we can never repay." His eyes darkened. "Is that what you think this is?" "I know how men like you operate," she said, lifting her chin. "Everything comes with a price." "Men like me?" A dangerous smile played at his lips. "And what kind of man am I, Adelia?" She swallowed hard but held his gaze. The kind who collects on their debts, with interest. Maya looked between them, confusion creasing her small face. "But you're nice," she told Luca. "You always smile at me when I wave at your restaurant." Something softened infinitesimally in Luca's expression as he looked at Maya. "The man who was here tonight," he said, returning his attention to Addie. "He'll be back. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, and next time he might not leave so easily." I can handle— You can't. His voice cut through her protest like a blade. Your daughter ran through dangerous streets alone tonight because she was terrified. She came to me, a stranger, because she felt she had no choice. Is that what you want for her? To live in that kind of fear? The words hit Addie like a physical blow. She looked down at Maya, who was pressed against her leg, small fingers twisted in the fabric of her pants. The truth of it burned in her throat. Mommy, Maya whispered. I'm scared he'll hurt you next time. Tears pricked at Addie's eyes. She blinked them back furiously, refusing to break down in front of Luca, but the fight was draining out of her, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion. What's your price? She asked finally, voice hollow. Luca stepped closer, and she forced herself not to retreat. My price, he said softly, is that you let me keep you safe, both of you. No conditions, no debt, just safety. She searched his face, looking for the lie, the hidden agenda. His expression remained impassive, but something in his eyes, something almost gentle, made her chest tight. Time to go, he said before she could respond. He moved to the door and opened it, revealing two men in dark suits standing in the hallway. They must have followed despite his earlier order to stay behind. Maya grabbed her hand, tugging her forward. Come on, Mommy, please! Addie took one last look around the apartment, at the scuffed walls and worn furniture, at the life she'd built from nothing. It wasn't much, but it had been theirs. Safe or not, it had been home. Okay, she whispered, squeezing Maya's hand. Okay. They stepped into the hallway, Luca's men falling into formation around them. The walk down the stairs felt surreal, like moving through water. Maya clutched her teddy bear with one hand and Addie's fingers with the other, practically skipping despite the tension crackling in the air. Outside, a sleek black car waited at the curb, its engine purring softly in the night. One of the men opened the back door and Maya climbed in without hesitation. Addie paused, her bag heavy in her hand. Last chance to change your mind, she said to Luca, but there was no real fight left in her voice. He placed his hand on the small of her back, guiding her toward the car. The touch was light but firm, brooking no argument. Get in the car, Adelia! She slid in beside Maya, who immediately curled against her side. Luca took the seat opposite them, his long legs filling the space between. The door closed with a solid thunk, and the car pulled smoothly away from the curb. Addie turned to look out the window, watching her building recede into the darkness. The thought hit her with stunning clarity. Everything was about to change. For better or worse, her careful, independent life had just been completely upended by a man whose very name carried weight in the darkest corners of the city. Maya's breathing was already evening out, her body heavy with impending sleep. Addie stroked her hair, trying to steady her own racing heart. When she glanced across the car, she found Luca watching them with an unreadable expression. The streetlight slid across his face in rhythmic patterns, highlighting the sharp angles of his features. He looked dangerous in the shadows, every inch the man she knew him to be by reputation. And yet he'd come when her daughter asked, had stepped between them and harm without hesitation. The car turned onto a wider street, heading toward the wealthy part of town where she'd never had reason to go. Her old life disappeared into the rearview mirror, and Addie couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal with the devil, whether he admitted it or not. The city lights blurred past the window as they drove deeper into the wealthy district. Addie's fingers absently stroked Maya's hair. The little girl now sound asleep against her side. The leather seats felt too soft, too luxurious, a stark reminder of how far she was from her worn apartment. Every few minutes, she caught Luca watching them in the darkness. His gaze was heavy, assessing, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. She wanted to snap at him to stop, but exhaustion had dulled her sharp edges. The car turned onto a private drive lined with towering oak trees. When they emerged from the natural tunnel, Addie's breath caught. The mansion sprawled before them, all stone and glass, lit from below like something out of a magazine. Maya stirred slightly as they came to a stop. We're here, Luca said quietly, his voice pitched low to avoid startling the child. One of his men opened the door, and cool night air rushed in. Addie gently shook Maya awake, helping her out of the car. The little girl's eyes went wide as she took in the house. It looks like a castle, she whispered, clutching her teddy bear tighter. Luca's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Come inside. The foyer was all marble and crystal, making their footsteps echo. A woman in a neat uniform appeared, her expression carefully neutral despite the late hour. Elena, Luca addressed her. Prepare 2 guest rooms in the east wing, and bring some food to the kitchen. Something light for the child. Right away, sir. She disappeared up the sweeping staircase. Addie felt painfully out of place, acutely aware of her worn jeans and simple t-shirt. Maya, however, was already perking up, her natural curiosity winning over exhaustion. This way. Luca led them through high-ceilinged halls to a kitchen that was bigger than Addie's entire apartment. The counters gleamed with polished granite, and state-of-the-art appliances lined the walls. Maya climbed onto one of the bar stools at the island, while Elena efficiently set out a plate of fruit, cheese, and crackers. Eat something, Luca told Maya, his tone gentler than Addie had heard it all night. The little girl didn't need to be told twice, diving into the food with enthusiasm. Addie remained standing, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Everything felt surreal. The luxury surrounding them, the armed men outside, the way Luca seemed to fill every space he occupied with his presence. Elena returned to report the rooms were ready, and Luca dismissed her for the night. Once she was gone, he moved to a drawer and pulled out an envelope. For necessities, he said, holding it out to Addie. Clothes, toiletries, whatever you need. She stared at the envelope, heat rising in her cheeks. No. Adelia. I said no. Her voice was quiet but firm. We're here because you insisted, not because I'm looking for handouts. His jaw tightened. This isn't charity. You need things, and I have the means to provide them. I have money, she shot back. Not much, but enough. I don't need yours. They faced each other across the kitchen island, tension crackling between them. Maya watched the exchange with wide eyes, a piece of cheese forgotten in her hand. Your pride, Luca said slowly, is going to be a problem. My pride is all I have left. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Something shifted in his expression, not quite softening, but changing. He set the envelope down on the counter and slid it toward her without another word. An offer, not a demand. Maya yawned widely, breaking the moment. Addie touched her shoulder. Time for bed, baby. Luca led them upstairs to their rooms, connected suites with views of the manicured gardens below. Maya's room was larger than any bedroom she'd ever had, with pale blue walls and built-in bookshelves. Wow, she breathed, running to bounce on the massive bed. Mommy, look! I see. Addie managed a smile, though her chest felt tight. Let's get you changed and tucked in. It took only minutes for Maya to fall back asleep, surrounded by plush pillows and fine linens. Addie kissed her forehead and slipped into the connecting door to her own room. The space was elegant but understated, cream walls, dark furniture, and a bed that looked soft enough to swallow her whole. A door led to what she assumed was an ensuite bathroom, but she was too tired to explore. She heard Luca's footsteps in the hallway, pausing outside her door. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the sound of his shoes on hardwood, growing fainter as he walked. Away. Addie sank onto the edge of the bed, her fingers running over the smooth duvet. Everything about this place, about this situation, felt wrong. But Maya was safe, sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. Maybe that was worth the price of her independence. The envelope still sat in her pocket, untouched. She pulled it out and set it on the nightstand, unable to fully accept it, but too tired to keep fighting. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new arguments about boundaries and expectations. For now, she just needed to breathe. Through the window, she could see lights dotting the expansive grounds. Security, she realized. Men with guns, protecting this fortress of marble and money, protecting them now that they were inside its walls. A clock somewhere in the house struck midnight, the sound muffled but distinct. Addie changed into the clothes she'd hastily packed, trying not to think about everything she'd left behind. Her life had shifted so dramatically in the span of a few hours that it felt like whiplash. From Maya's room came the soft sound of her daughter's steady breathing. At least one of them could rest easily in this strange new place. Addie lay down on top of the covers, too wired to sleep despite her exhaustion. Somewhere in this massive house, Luca was probably still awake, moving through his domain like the predator she knew him to be. Yet she couldn't forget the gentleness in his voice when he spoke to Maya, or the patience in his eyes when she refused his money. The man was a contradiction, threat and sanctuary wrapped in expensive suits and careful control. She didn't trust him, couldn't trust him, but for tonight at least, she was trapped in his world of luxury and violence. Dawn crept through unfamiliar windows as Addie's eyes fluttered open. For a moment she forgot where she was, the bed too soft, the room too quiet. Then reality crashed back, and she sat up, running her fingers through tangled hair. Maya still slept soundly in the next room. Addie checked on her, then slipped into the ensuite bathroom. The shower was a complicated array of jets and settings that made her old apartment's plumbing look prehistoric. She figured it out eventually, letting hot water wash away the tension in her shoulders. The kitchen called to her like a sanctuary. If she couldn't control her circumstances, at least she could control this: the simple rhythm of measuring ingredients, the familiar motions of cooking. She found the spacious kitchen easily enough, its professional-grade appliances gleaming in the morning light. Opening cabinets revealed fully stocked shelves. Fresh ingredients filled the refrigerator, evidence of a well-oiled household staff. She gathered what she needed: eggs, butter, flour, vanilla. The routine of making pancakes settled her nerves. Planning a revolt through breakfast? Luca's voice startled her. He stood in the doorway, his usual suit replaced by a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled, to reveal strong forearms. His dark hair was slightly damp, as if he'd just showered. Force of habit, she replied, keeping her voice steady. I always cook breakfast. He moved closer, watching as she poured batter onto the griddle. My chef won't appreciate the competition. I didn't realize making pancakes was a hostile act. She flipped one with perhaps more force than necessary. Everything you do is an act of rebellion, isn't it? His tone held amusement rather than anger. He leaned against the counter, too close for comfort. Even small ones? Addie set down her spatula and turned to face him. Let's be clear about something. I'm grateful for your help last night, but I won't be a passive guest in this house. I need to contribute to have purpose. And what do you propose? I'll help with housework, cooking when I want to. I'll watch Maya, keep our spaces tidy. She met his gaze. But I won't be owned or controlled. I need that understood. Luca studied her for a long moment. You're under my protection now. That comes with certain rules. Rules like what? You don't leave the grounds without security. You tell me or my staff where you're going. You answer your phone when I call. He stepped closer. Basic safety measures. That sounds more like surveillance than protection. Call it what you want. Those are my conditions. The pancake started to smoke. Addie quickly flipped it, buying time to think. Fine, but I have conditions too. I keep my job at the bakery. Maya stays in her school. We maintain some normalcy. With enhanced security measures, his tone left no room for argument. I'll have my men check the routes, set up protocols. Mommy? Maya appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her face lit up when she saw the pancakes. You're making breakfast. The tension in the room softened immediately. There's my sleeping beauty, Addie said. Hungry? Maya climbed onto a bar stool, watching in fascination as Luca's housekeeper appeared with fresh fruit and juice. It's like a hotel, she whispered loudly to Addie. Better than a hotel, Luca said, his voice gentler when addressing Maya. This is home now. Addie's hand stilled for a moment at those words. Home. Such a loaded term for a place that felt more like beautiful captivity. They ate together, an oddly domestic scene. Maya chatted about her dreams, while Luca listened with surprising attention. His phone buzzed several times, but he ignored it, focused on Maya's elaborate story about flying unicorns. These are really good, he said to Addie, indicating the pancakes. Better than my chef's. Don't tell him that, she replied. I don't need enemies in the kitchen. His lip quirked. The kitchen staff answers to me. They'll adapt. After breakfast, Luca's demeanor shifted back to business. He checked his phone, frowning at whatever he saw. I have meetings today. Antonio will drive you wherever you need to go. Work, school, errands. I can drive. Myself, Addie protested. Not anymore. He straightened his cuffs. Antonio or Marco, no exceptions. Before she could argue further, he turned to his security chief, who had appeared silently in the doorway. I want eyes on her old apartment. Report any activity, especially if our visitor from last night shows up. Yes, sir. And get me everything you can on him. Description, known associates, patterns. His voice had turned cold, reminding Addie sharply of who and what he really was. Right away, Mr. Verone. Luca turned back to them, his expression warming slightly. Maya, be good for your mother today. Adelia. He paused. Try not to start any revolutions while I'm gone. No promises, she muttered. He smiled then, brief but genuine, before striding out. The sound of his shoes on marble faded, followed by the distant slam of a car door. Maya helped clear the dishes, handling the expensive plates carefully. I like it here, she said quietly. It feels safe. Addie's throat tightened. Yes, baby, it is safe. She just wasn't sure if that safety was worth the price they'd have to pay. The housekeeper shooed them away from the cleanup, so Addie took Maya upstairs to get ready for school. As she helped her daughter brush her hair, she caught their reflection in the ornate mirror, two displaced pieces in this puzzle of power and privilege. Antonio waited by the car when they came down, opening doors with efficient courtesy. Addie slid into the back seat, noting the tinted windows and thick glass. A protective cage, but a cage nonetheless. As they pulled through the gates, she saw Luca's sleek black car already gone, off to whatever business occupied a man like him. She wondered how many of those dealings she really wanted to know about. Maya hummed happily beside her, seemingly unfazed by their new reality. Children adapted so easily, Addie thought. If only she could do the same. That afternoon, sunlight streamed through tall windows as Addie and Maya wandered the mansion's endless corridors. Maya skipped ahead, treating it like a grand adventure, while Addie noted escape routes and entry points. Old habits died hard. "Look at this room, Mommy!" Maya darted into what appeared to be a music room, dominated by a gleaming grand piano. "Can I touch it?" "Carefully," Addie cautioned, following her daughter. The piano probably cost more than their old apartment building. Everything here screamed wealth, from the hand-painted ceiling murals to the plush Persian rugs beneath their feet. They discovered a library with floor-to-ceiling shelves, a conservatory filled with exotic plants, and a home theater that made Maya squeal with delight. Each room felt like stepping into another world, one where money meant nothing and luxury was simply air to breathe. "Miss Adelia?" The housekeeper, Maria, appeared in a doorway. "Mr. Verone called. He's on his way home and requests you both dress for dinner." Addie glanced down at her simple jeans and sweater. "I didn't exactly pack formal wear." "There are clothes in your closet, ma'am. Mr. Verone had them delivered this morning." Of course he did. Another demonstration of control wrapped in generosity. Still, they needed to change, so Addie led Maya upstairs to their connecting rooms. The closet held an array of designer pieces in exactly her size. She chose a simple black dress, helping Maya into a pretty blue one that made her daughter twirl with joy. They were heading downstairs when the first shots rang out. The sound cracked through the evening quiet like lightning. Maya screamed, and Addie instinctively pulled her close, dropping to a crouch behind a decorative table. Shouts erupted outside. Running footsteps thundered through the house as Luca's security mobilized. A guard appeared at the top of the stairs, gun drawn. "Mrs. Adelia, come with me now!" She scooped Maya up and ran, following him to a hidden door that opened into a reinforced panic room. Other staff members were already inside, including Maria, who immediately took Maya in her arms while Addie paced. Through small security monitors, they watched the scene unfold. Men in black tactical gear had breached the outer gate. Luca's security team engaged them with military precision, but one attacker made it through, sprinting across the manicured lawn. That's when Luca emerged from his car, moving with lethal grace. He intercepted the intruder halfway to the house, and Addie couldn't look away as he took the man down with brutal efficiency. Even through the grainy footage, she saw the raw violence in his movements, the controlled fury as he disabled the attacker with calculated strikes. The whole thing lasted less than 10 minutes. When the all-clear came, Addie's hands were shaking. Maya had fallen asleep in Maria's lap, exhausted from fear. The panic room door opened, and Luca filled the frame. His suit was immaculate except for the blood on his knuckles. His eyes found Addie immediately, scanning her for injury. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, unable to speak. The contrast between the elegant man who'd teased her at breakfast and this dangerous creature was dizzying. "Take Maya to her room," he told Maria. "Post 2 guards outside their doors tonight." After Maya was safely tucked away, Luca led Addie to his study. She noticed his security teams sweeping the grounds, removing evidence of the attack with practiced ease. "Sit," he commanded, pouring 2 fingers of whiskey and pressing the glass into her hands. "Drink." She took a sip, the alcohol burning away some of her shock. "Who were they?" "Enzo Castellano's men." His voice was ice. "A warning shot, testing my defenses, testing me." "Because of us?" "No. This is old business." He flexed his bloody hand. "But your presence here complicates things. He'll try to use you against me." The whiskey turned bitter in her mouth. "We should leave. You're safer here." His tone brooked no argument. "I can protect you." "Out." "There. You're vulnerable. I saw how you protect people." The words slipped out before she could stop them. He went very still. "Yes, you did." His eyes met hers, dark and unreadable. "Does that frighten you?" "Should it?" "Yes." He moved closer, and she caught the scent of gunpowder beneath his cologne. "But not for the reasons you think." I'm dangerous to my enemies, Adelia. Never to you, never to Maya. The intensity in his voice made her shiver. How can you be sure? Because you're mine now. He touched her cheek with his clean hand, barely a whisper of contact. Under my protection, my responsibility, my... He stopped himself, dropping his hand. Security teams reported in through his earpiece, breaking the charged moment. House is secure, sir. Perimeter reinforced. We're in lockdown. Good. Double the patrols tonight. He turned back to Addie. You should rest. It's been a long day. She stood on shaky legs, the reality of their situation sinking in. They were trapped here now, caught between Luca's protection and his enemy's threats. At her door, he paused. One more thing. His expression hardened. If anything happens, any threat, any danger, you run to me, not away from me, understand? She nodded, knowing it wasn't really a request. Inside her room, Addie sank onto the bed, still in her black dress. Outside, armed men patrolled the grounds, and somewhere in the city, enemies plotted their next move. But in here, listening to Maya's soft breathing through the connecting door, she felt an unsettling mix of terror and security. The man who'd nearly killed someone on his front lawn was the same one who'd noticed Maya's favorite breakfast foods this morning. The hands that had dealt violence so efficiently were the same ones that had touched her cheek with impossible gentleness. She didn't know how to reconcile these versions of Luca Verone, the protector and the predator, the man who'd given them shelter and the one who'd drawn blood to keep them safe. Through her window, she watched the guards move in practice patterns, their weapons ready. The mansion had transformed from a luxury prison into a fortress, but as sleep finally claimed her, one thought lingered. She wasn't sure anymore which was more dangerous, the threats outside these walls, or the man who ruled within them. Sunlight streamed through the study's tall windows, but it did nothing to soften Luca's expression. He stood behind his desk, hands clasped behind his back, waiting as Addie took the leather chair across from him. The man who attacked you in your apartment, he began without preamble, works for Enzo Castellano. Addie's fingers tightened on the armrests. The same Enzo from last night's attack? Yes, Luca's jaw clenched. He's been watching you, using you as leverage against me since Maya first approached me for help. But why? I didn't even know you before that night. Because that's how Enzo operates. He finds weaknesses, creates pressure. Points! Luca's voice hardened. The moment Maya led me to you, you became a target he could exploit. So the man at my apartment was meant to drive you into a corner, make you desperate enough to seek help. His knuckles whitened. Enzo knew I wouldn't ignore a child in danger. Addie stood abruptly, pacing. I need the whole truth, Luca. No more pieces of the puzzle. She turned to face him. If I'm going to trust you with our lives, I deserve to know why we're in danger. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise. Maybe respect. He studied her for a long moment before speaking. 7 years ago, my sister Teresa worked with Enzo to betray our family. She gave him access to our security protocols, our safe houses. His voice grew cold. 12 of our people died because of her choices. Addie watched him carefully. What happened to her? She disappeared, Enzo too. Luca moved to the window. But now he's back, looking for new ways to hurt what's mine. And I'm just another chess piece. The question came out sharper than intended. He turned, his gaze intense. No. You're under my protection, because I choose to protect you. Because Maya trusted me enough to ask for help. Because... He stopped, seeming to catch himself. Because what? Because you refuse to be broken by circumstances beyond your control. His admission was quiet. I respect that. Addie absorbed this, noting how his hands had unclenched slightly. Your sister's betrayal, it changed you, didn't it? It taught me control is survival. He met her eyes. Trust must be earned, then guarded absolutely. And violence? Is that always your answer? When necessary? He moved closer. I won't apologize for protecting what's mine, Adelia, but I won't let you or Maya be touched by that darkness either. She believed him, and that realization was unsettling. The morning stretched into afternoon. Addie helped Maya with her schoolwork in the sunny breakfast room, trying to maintain normalcy. Through the open door, she heard Luca speaking with someone about Maya's education. Find the best tutors, he was saying, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. But make sure they understand. She needs stability, not pressure. Let her keep some routine from her old school if possible. Addie's hands stilled on Maya's math worksheet. This was the same man who'd efficiently orchestrated violence last night. Yet here he was, considering a child's emotional needs with surprising insight. "And get her art supplies," he continued. "The good ones. She mentioned liking to draw." Maya looked up from her homework. "Is Mr. Luca getting me presents?" "He's making sure you have what you need," Addie answered carefully, still processing the softer side of him. The day passed quietly. Security remained tight, but the mansion's routine resumed its elegant flow. Addie helped in the kitchen, needing to stay busy, while Maya charmed the staff with her endless questions. Early evening found Addie, walking the upstairs hall, trailing her fingers along the wainscoting. She turned a corner and stopped short. Luca stood at the window, his profile sharp against the setting sun. He turned at her footsteps, and their eyes met. The air between them seemed to thicken. Neither spoke, but something passed between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of shared secrets, of boundaries starting to blur. His gaze held hers, dark and unreadable, but softer than it had been that morning. Addie felt her pulse quicken, aware of how the dying sunlight painted shadows across his face, how his presence filled the space between them with unspoken possibilities. The moment stretched, charged with something she wasn't ready to name. Then Maya's laughter echoed up the stairs, breaking the spell, and Addie continued past him, feeling his eyes follow her until she turned the corner. The tension from their morning conversation had shifted into something else entirely, something that made her both nervous and aware of every breath between them. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new reasons to question her place in his world. But for now, that silent exchange in the hallway lingered in her mind, impossible to ignore. The kitchen was quiet as Addie poured coffee into 2 mugs. Her hands trembled slightly, but she steadied them, adding cream to hers, leaving his black as she'd noticed he preferred. The house had settled into evening silence, broken only by the soft footsteps of security outside. She found Luca in his study, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled to expose strong forearms. He looked up from paperwork, surprise flickering across his features. "Peace offering," she said softly, setting his mug down. He studied her face. "You don't need to make peace with me, Adelia." "Maybe I want to." She settled into the leather chair across from him, curling her legs beneath her. Today was intense. Most days are, in my world. He took a sip, watching her over the rim. "You handled it well. I've had practice surviving intense situations." The coffee warmed her hands as she held it close, though usually not involving gunfire. His jaw tightened. "That won't happen again." "Because you'll control it?" The question held no judgment, just curiosity. "Because I protect what's mine." He set his mug down carefully. "Even if they resist that protection." Heat crept up her neck. "I'm not yours, Luca." "Aren't you?" His voice dropped lower. "You're in my home, under my protection. I think about your safety constantly. I want—" He stopped, dark eyes intense. "What do you want?" The words came out barely above a whisper. "Everything." He stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. "But I won't take what isn't freely given." Addie's heart thundered as he approached, but she didn't retreat. "That's not very Mafia of you." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I'm full of surprises." He stopped beside her chair, close enough that she could smell. His cologne, something expensive and masculine. She set her coffee aside and stood slowly, bringing them chest to chest. "I don't like owing people," she said quietly. "This isn't about debt." His hand came up to trace her jaw, feather light. "This is about choice. Your choice." The tenderness in his touch undid her. Addie lifted onto her toes, pressing her lips to his with deliberate intent. He remained still for a heartbeat, then groaned softly, his hand sliding into her hair. The kiss deepened slowly, heat building between them. His other hand settled on her waist, steadying but not constraining. She pressed closer, fingers curling into his shirt, and felt his restraint trembling. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against her mouth. Instead, she kissed him harder, nipping his lower lip. His control snapped with a growl, and suddenly she was lifted onto his desk, papers scattering. But even then, his touches remained careful, questioning. Addie wrapped her legs around his waist, drawing him closer. "I'm not fragile, Luca." "No," he agreed, trailing kisses down her neck. "You're steel wrapped in silk." His teeth grazed her pulse point, making her gasp. "Beautiful and dangerous." She worked at his shirt buttons while he explored the sensitive spot behind her ear. Each new inch of exposed skin drew her fingers like magnets. Scars decorated his chest, telling stories of survival she wanted to learn. His hand slid under her sweater, warm against her ribs. "May I?" She nodded, lifting her arms as he pulled the fabric over her head. The cool air raised goosebumps on her skin, but his palms were fire wherever they touched. His eyes darkened at the sight of purple lace. "Beautiful," he breathed, tracing the edge of her bra. Addie pulled him back to her mouth. Hungry for more. Their kisses grew desperate, hands exploring with increasing urgency. She pushed his shirt off his shoulders, needing to feel more of him. The desk was hard beneath her, but she barely noticed. All she could focus on was the play of muscles under her fingers, the way he shuddered when she scraped her nails down his back, the heat of his mouth on her collarbone. "Bed," she managed between kisses. "Now." He lifted her easily, her legs still locked around him. The walk to his bedroom was a blur of touches and half-removed clothing. By the time he laid her on dark silk sheets, they were both breathing hard. Luca braced above her, his expression intense. "Tell me what you want." "You," she said simply. "Just you." The night stretched out in a haze of pleasure and discovery. They learned each other slowly, then desperately, then slowly again. His hands memorized every curve while she mapped his scars with her lips. When they finally came together, the world narrowed to just this: skin and breath and need. After, they lay tangled in sheets and moonlight. Addie traced patterns on his chest while his fingers combed through her hair. Neither spoke about what this meant, how everything had shifted. The silence was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. The grandfather clock in the hall struck midnight, its chimes floating through the darkness. Addie felt Luca's arms tighten slightly, possessive yet gentle. She should feel trapped, she thought. Instead, she felt safe. His heartbeat was steady under her ear, a rhythm she could easily get lost in. Tomorrow would bring new complications, new boundaries to navigate. But for now, this was enough. This quiet moment where past and future blurred, leaving only the present. Luca pressed a kiss to her temple, and Addie closed her eyes, letting the night wrap around them like a blanket. Some changes, she decided, didn't need words to be understood. Some truths were better spelled out in touches and breaths and the way he held her, like something precious but not breakable. The moonlight painted silver stripes across the bed, across their entwined forms. Outside, crickets sang their endless summer song. Inside, two people who'd learned not to trust began learning something new: how to fall without fear of breaking. Sunlight filtered through unfamiliar curtains, warming Addie's face. For a moment she tensed, then remembered where she was as memories of last night flooded back. Luca's bed. His sheets still carried his scent, sandalwood, and something uniquely him. She turned to find his side empty but still warm. The sound of running water from his ensuite bathroom told her where he was. Sitting up, she wrapped the sheet around herself, taking in the massive bedroom she'd barely noticed last night. Dark wood furniture, minimalist art, everything speaking of wealth and control. Her clothes from yesterday lay scattered across the floor alongside his. Heat crept into her cheeks as she gathered them quickly, dressing in last night's jeans and sweater. The shower still ran, and curiosity pulled her toward his connecting office. The morning light revealed details she'd missed in last night's passion. Awards and degrees lined one wall. A chess set sat mid-game on a side table. Everything perfectly arranged, except for the papers they'd scattered from his desk. Guilt pricked her as she began gathering them. Business documents, mostly, until her hand froze on a photograph, partially hidden under a folder. Her breath caught. The image showed a younger Luca with a woman who had to be his sister. But it was the man standing next to them that made her blood run cold. Enzo. Younger, smiling, his arm around the sister's waist. The same man who'd left bruises on Addie's wrists years ago, before she'd escaped with Maya. The shower stopped. Addie's hands shook as she shoved the photo back under the folder, trying to arrange everything exactly as it had been. Her mind raced. Enzo wasn't just some random criminal. He was connected to Luca's family betrayal. The sister's lover, the one who'd caused whatever wound Luca carried. And now Addie was in Luca's bed, carrying secrets that could reopen. That passed. The bathroom door opened as she pretended to straighten papers on his desk. Steam billowed out with him, and she forced herself to breathe normally. "Good morning," Luca said, voice rough with lingering sleep. He wore only a towel, water droplets trailing down his chest. Any other time, the sight would have derailed her thoughts completely. "Morning," she managed, proud her voice stayed steady. "Sorry about the mess we made." He crossed to her, dropping a kiss on her shoulder. "Leave it." The staff knows not to touch anything in here. His casual mention of staff made her even more aware of her rumpled clothes. I should shower and change before Maya wakes up. Something flickered in his eyes. Concern, suspicion. But he only nodded, letting her slip past him. In her own bathroom, she turned the water as hot as she could stand, trying to wash away the panic. The morning passed in a blur of routine. Breakfast with Maya, who chatted about her upcoming tutoring session, cleaning up while trying not to jump every time Luca touched her. He definitely sensed something was off, his gaze following her more intently than usual. After lunch, Maya bounced into Luca's office where he was working, Addie trailing behind to make sure she didn't disturb him. "Can you braid my hair?" Maya asked, holding out a hair tie. "Like you did yesterday." Addie blinked in surprise. She hadn't known about this. Luca set down his phone without hesitation. "Come here, Piccola." Maya scrambled onto his lap, and Addie watched in amazement as those dangerous hands gently separated her daughter's dark hair into sections. His fingers moved with surprising skill, weaving strands together while Maya hummed contentedly. "Where did you learn to braid?" Addie asked before she could stop herself. A shadow passed over his face. "My sister taught me." He focused on finishing Maya's braid, but added quietly, "She used to let me practice on her hair when we were young." The casual mention of his sister made Addie's stomach twist. She watched him tie off the braid and press a kiss to Maya's head, his tenderness with her daughter at odds with everything she now knew about his past. Maya hopped down, admiring her reflection in a window. "Perfect! Thank you!" "Anytime, Piccola." His smile for Maya was genuine, but when he looked at Addie, that searching expression returned. She made excuses about laundry and fled, spending the rest of the afternoon keeping busy with household tasks. The staff clearly found it strange that she insisted on doing things herself, but she needed the distraction. Evening found her alone in the library, curled in a window seat, while Maya played in her room. The same questions circled her mind like hungry wolves. How much did Luca know about her past with Enzo? Did Enzo know she was here? The wrong word could shatter this fragile safety she'd found. Books surrounded her, but she couldn't focus on their pages. Outside, guards patrolled the grounds. Their presence both comforting and suffocating. She pressed her forehead to the cool glass, watching shadows lengthen across the manicured lawn. The photo haunted her. Young Luca, his sister, and Enzo. A snapshot of happiness before whatever betrayal tore them apart. Now here she was, tangled in the same web, keeping secrets that could destroy the trust growing between them. Last night replayed in her mind. Luca's gentle touches, his patience, the way he'd made her feel both desired and respected. She wrapped her arms around herself, remembering his warmth. How could she keep this from him? But how could she tell him without risking everything? Maya's laughter echoed from upstairs, reminding her exactly why she had to be careful. Her daughter was happy here, safer than they'd been in years. One wrong move could send them running again, and Addie was so tired of running. The library's silence pressed in around her as darkness crept across the room. She should turn on a lamp, join Maya upstairs, act normal. Instead, she sat in the growing shadows, the weight of secrets heavy on her shoulders, wondering how long she could keep pretending nothing had changed. Morning light filtered through the curtains as Addie prepared coffee in Luca's kitchen. Her hands trembled slightly, forcing her to concentrate on not spilling. The previous night's restless sleep left dark circles under her eyes that even concealer couldn't hide. "You're avoiding me!" Luca's voice came from behind her, making her jump. She hadn't heard him approach. "I'm making coffee," she said, keeping her tone light while reaching for another mug. "Want some?" "Stop!" His command was quiet but firm. "Look at me." She turned, forcing herself to meet his gaze. He stood in the doorway, already dressed in a tailored suit that made him look both elegant and dangerous. His dark eyes studied her face with the intensity that always made her feel exposed. "Something changed yesterday." He moved closer, crowding her personal space. "You're here, but you're not present. Tell me why." "Nothing's changed." The lie tasted bitter. "I'm just adjusting to all of this." "Don't lie to me." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek. The gesture was gentle, but his voice held steel. "You've been jumpy since yesterday morning. Your smile doesn't reach your eyes. You flinch when I touch you." She pulled away from his touch, anger flaring. "So I'm not allowed to have moods? Because I live under your protection, I have to be perfectly happy all the time?" "That's not what I said." His jaw tightened. but I need to know if something's threatening what's mine. What's yours? She stepped back, heat rising in her chest. Is that what this is about? You think because we slept together, you own me now? You know that's not what I meant. His patience was visibly wearing thin. But you're under my protection, if something's wrong. Maybe what's wrong is that you think protection means control. The words burst out before she could stop them. You want to know everything, control everything. But some things are mine to deal with. Not if they put you in danger. He moved forward, backing her against the counter. Not if they threaten what we're building here. What are we building, Luca? She met his gaze defiantly. A prison with nicer walls? Where I have to report my every thought and feeling. Pain flashed across his face before his expression hardened. You think I'm trying to cage you? Everything I've done has been to keep you safe. Safe doesn't mean controlled. She ducked under his arm, needing space to breathe. I'm grateful for your protection, but I'm not one of your soldiers who has to report every detail of their day. No, you're far more important. His voice dropped dangerously. Which means I need to know what's wrong. Nothing is wrong. She grabbed her coffee cup, hands shaking. I just need space sometimes. Is that allowed? She stormed out before he could answer, retreating to her room. Her heart pounded as she sank onto the bed, wondering if he could hear the lie in her voice as clearly as she could. An hour later, Luca stood in his office, staring at the slightly ajar drawer of his desk. He always kept it perfectly aligned, a habit born from years of protecting sensitive information. Someone had opened it recently, and not very carefully. The photo album inside confirmed his suspicion. The corner was bent where it had been hastily shoved back in place. He pulled it out, flipping to the page he knew would be creased. There it was, the old photo of him, his sister, and Enzo. His throat tightened at the sight of their young, smiling faces, before betrayal had poisoned everything. The pieces clicked into place. Addie's sudden distance, her defensive behavior, the fear she tried to hide. She'd seen the photo and recognized something or someone that scared her. His phone buzzed with a message from his security team. He read it twice, fury building with each word. One of Addie's co-workers from the bakery hadn't shown up for work. Security cameras showed her being forced into a black car near her apartment. The license plate matched one of Enzo's known vehicles. Minutes later, Addie's phone chimed with a text. She was in the garden with Maya, enjoying the morning sun while trying to calm her nerves from the argument. The message made her blood run cold. Sweet Addie, your friend Sophia makes delightful company. She's told me so much about you and little Maya. Shall we discuss old times? Come alone to the address below, or Sophia might not make it home tonight. Don't tell Luca. You know how his temper can be destructive to those caught in the crossfire. You have 3 hours. Her hands shook as she deleted the message. Sophia, kind, funny Sophia, who had given Maya cookies and covered Addie's shifts when money was tight, who had no part in any of this but was now in danger because of her. She looked up at the mansion, where Luca was probably still in his office, anger radiating off him like heat. He'd kill Enzo if he knew, starting a war that would put everyone at risk. Sophia would be collateral damage, just like Luca's sister had been. Maya laughed as she chased a butterfly through the garden, carefree and safe within these walls. Addie watched her daughter, knowing what she had to do. She couldn't let Sophia pay the price for her past. Couldn't risk Maya's safety by starting a war. She had 3 hours to figure out how to slip away from Luca's security and face Enzo alone. The thought made her nauseous, but she straightened her spine. She'd survived Enzo before. She would do it again. For Sophia, for Maya, for the chance to keep her past from destroying everything she'd found here. Addie checked her watch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the mansion's driveway as she guided Maya toward the waiting car. Ice cream time! Maya bounced on her toes. Can I get sprinkles? You can get whatever you want, sweetheart. Addie's voice nearly cracked. She squeezed Maya's hand tighter, memorizing the warmth of those small fingers in hers. Marco, Luca's most trusted driver, held the car door open. The usual place, Ms. Adelia. Actually, Addie forced a smile. Could you take Maya to that new shop across town? The one with the fancy sundaes? I need to run a quick errand, but I'll meet you there in an hour. Marco's expression flickered with doubt. Mr. Verone's instructions are to keep Maya safe, Addie finished, which you'll do perfectly. I just need to pick up something special for tonight. The lie tasted bitter. Maya climbed into the car, already chattering about ice cream flavors. Addie leaned in, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. Be good for Marco, okay? Mommy will see you soon. She waited until the car disappeared around the corner before hurrying toward the side gate. Her heart hammered as she slipped the yard through the gap in security she'd noticed during her morning walks. The guards were changing shifts, a small window of opportunity she couldn't waste. The address Enzo sent led her to an abandoned warehouse by the docks. Rust ate at the metal walls, and broken windows gaped like hungry mouths. Addie's hands trembled as she pushed open the heavy door. Right on time! Enzo's smooth voice echoed through the empty space. He lounged against a support beam, elegant as always in his tailored suit. Sophia sat tied to a chair nearby, tear tracks staining her cheeks. Let her go, Addie demanded. She has nothing to do with this. Sweet Sophia has served her purpose. Enzo smiled, all predatory charm. Though I must say she's been enlightening company. Did you know she thinks you and Luca make such a lovely couple? How tragic that she doesn't know the truth about either of you. Sophia whimpered through her gag, and Addie took a step toward her. Enzo's men emerged from the shadows, blocking her path. The document first, dear Adelia. Enzo held out his hand. The one you found in Luca's office, the one that proves his sister's innocence, and his mistake. Addie's fingers curled around the folded paper in her pocket. She'd taken it that morning after discovering the truth about Luca's past, the evidence that his sister hadn't betrayed the family at all. She'd been trying to protect them from Enzo. How did you know I found it? Because I made sure you would. Enzo's smile widened. Just like I made sure you'd recognize me in that old photo. The pieces were there, waiting for you to connect them. Your ex-boyfriend worked for me, after all. Remember how he used to disappear for days? Who do you think he was reporting to? Bile rose in Addie's throat. All this time, Enzo had been pulling strings, using her past to set this trap. The document, he repeated, or Sophia pays for your hesitation. Addie pulled out the paper, her last bargaining chip crumbling. Release her first! Enzo nodded to his men. They cut Sophia free, shoving her toward the door. She stumbled, crying, looking back at Addie with confused betrayal before running. Now, Enzo stepped closer. Let's make sure Luca knows exactly how his latest love interest repaid his protection. He grabbed the document, then pulled out his phone. The camera flashed, capturing Addie standing close, the paper passing between them. Her stomach dropped as she realized how it would look. Perfect. Enzo tucked the evidence away. By tonight, Luca will believe you came to me willingly, that you betrayed him, just like his sister. The thing about Luca, he never learns from his mistakes. He'll always choose rage over truth. He'll know I was protecting Sophia. Will he? Enzo's laugh was cruel. The mighty Luca Verone who kills men for looking at him wrong, who can't sleep without checking his security feeds, the man whose own sister's betrayal nearly destroyed him. He leaned close, whispering, He'll never trust you again. Addie stumbled back, realizing too late the true depth of Enzo's plan. This wasn't just about the document. It was about breaking Luca's faith in her completely. The sun was setting when she finally returned to the mansion. Maya was already in bed, tired from her ice cream adventure. The house felt different. Colder, darker. Security guards watched her with hard eyes as she walked inside. She found Luca in his office. He stood at the window, his back to her, a glass of whiskey untouched on his desk. Next to it lay printed photos, her and Enzo, the document exchange staged to look intimate and willing. Luca, she started. Don't! His voice could have frozen hell. Did you enjoy your ice cream? The casual question carried lethal weight. He turned slowly, and Addie's breath caught at the devastation in his eyes, quickly masked by fury. I had to. You had to what? He moved closer, each step measured and dangerous. Had to run to my enemy? Had to give him exactly what he wanted? Had to prove that every person I let close will eventually betray me? Sophia was in danger, and instead of trusting me to handle it, you chose him. The words fell like bullets. Just like my sister did. I should have known when I found that drawer open. Should have seen the signs. Please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. He walked past her to the door, his shoulder barely brushing hers. The small contact burned like ice. You made your choice. Now you'll live with it. The door closed behind him with terrible finality. Addie stood alone in his office, the photos on his desk mocking her good intentions, while somewhere across the city, Enzo celebrated his victory over them both. Addie pressed her forehead against the closed office door, her heart hammering against her ribs. The mansion's silence pressed in around her, suffocating and final. She turned back to his desk, staring at those damning photos, wanting to tear them to pieces. "I did it for Sophia," she whispered to the empty room. "I did it to protect someone innocent." But the words felt hollow even to her own ears. She'd kept secrets, sneaked around, played right into Enzo's hands. The truth didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. Her feet carried her upstairs to her room automatically. The bed was still made from this morning, when everything had been different. When Luca had kissed her awake, his fingers gentle in her hair. Now those same hands had turned to ice. She pulled out her small duffel bag, the one she'd never fully unpacked, some part of her always ready to run. Clothes went in mechanically. The few things she'd brought from her apartment, nothing Luca had bought her. She wouldn't take his gifts, wouldn't owe him anything more. A soft knock made her freeze. "Come in," she called, expecting Luca, hoping for one more chance to explain. But it was Maya who slipped inside, already in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Addie, why are you packing?" The innocent question nearly broke her. Addie sat on the bed, patting the space beside her. "Come here, sweetheart." Maya climbed up, immediately curling into her side. "Are we going somewhere?" "No, baby, just me." Addie stroked her hair, memorizing the feel of it. "I have to go away for a little while." "But why?" Maya's voice wobbled. "Did I do something wrong?" No, never." Addie pulled her closer, fighting back tears. "You've been perfect. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Big ones, and sometimes they have to leave to fix things." "I don't want you to go." Maya's arms tightened around her waist. "Please stay. I'll tell Luca to forgive you." The simple faith in her voice made Addie's chest ache. "It's not that simple, baby. But I promise I'll text you every night, okay? And maybe someday things will be different." She helped Maya back to her own room, tucking her in one last time. The little girl's eyes were wet, but she held onto her rabbit bravely. Addie kissed her forehead, lingering for just a moment. "I love you," she whispered. "Don't ever forget that." Back in her room, she finished packing quickly. Just the essentials. Clothes, toiletries, her wallet. The bare minimum needed to start over. Again. The hallway was empty as she descended the stairs, her footsteps echoing on marble. She could feel eyes on her, security cameras tracking her movement, guards watching from discreet positions. But no one stopped her. She paused at the front door, her hand on the handle. From the corner of her eye, she caught movement in the upstairs window. Luca stood there, a dark silhouette against warm light, watching. Their eyes met across the distance. For a moment, just a heartbeat, his mask slipped. Raw pain crossed his face, a mirror of her own. She saw the boy who'd lost his sister's love, the man who'd dared to trust again, only to have that trust shattered. Then his jaw clenched and the mask slammed back into place. Addie turned away first. The night air hit her face as she stepped outside, cool and damp with approaching rain. She walked down the long driveway, past the gates that opened automatically for her exit. No one followed. The city swallowed her into its shadows. She walked for nearly an hour, putting distance between herself and everything she was leaving behind. Finally, exhausted and cold, she found a motel that rented rooms by the week. The room was clean enough, if shabby. Yellow wallpaper peeled at the corners, and the bedspread had seen better days. But it had a lock on the door and hot water in the shower. It would do. Addie sat on the edge of the bed, her small bag at her feet. The silence here was different from the mansion's. Thin walls let through traffic noise and distant voices. A siren wailed somewhere nearby. This was her world now. Again. Her phone lit up with a text from Maya. "Night-night, miss you already." The tears she'd been holding back finally spilled over. They fell silently as she typed back, "Good night, sweetheart. Sweet dreams." She curled up on the strange bed, still fully dressed, and let herself cry. For Maya's confusion, for Luca's pain, for her own shattered heart, for choices that felt right and wrong at the same time, for the warmth and safety she'd found, however briefly, before it all fell apart. Outside her window, the city lights blurred through her tears. Somewhere out there, Luca was probably still standing at his window, that mask of cold fury hiding his wounds. Somewhere, Maya was hugging her rabbit tight, trying to understand why adults kept leaving her. And here she was starting over with nothing but a bag of clothes and a broken heart, wondering if she'd ever stop running, ever find a place where she could just stay. Her phone buzzed again. For a moment, hope fluttered. Maybe Luca. But it was Sophia. "I'm so sorry. Are you safe?" Addie wiped her eyes, typing back one-handed. Safe enough. Don't blame yourself. He'll understand. Eventually. When he calms down. No, Addie interrupted. He won't. And that's okay. Get some rest. She turned off her phone after that. The room felt smaller in the darkness, the walls pressing in. Tomorrow she'd need to figure out next steps. A job, a permanent place to stay, a way forward. But tonight she just needed to breathe through the pain. Rain started pattering against the window, matching the rhythm of her tears. She didn't bother getting under the covers or changing clothes. Just lay there, letting grief wash over her in waves until exhaustion finally pulled her under. Her last thought before sleep claimed her was of Luca's face in that window. Not the mask of fury, but that brief flash of raw hurt. In trying to protect everyone, she'd ended up hurting them all instead. Luca burst into Bianca's office at dawn, the door slamming against the wall. His rage filled the room like a storm cloud. Find everything, every detail, every connection. His voice was deadly quiet. I want to know exactly how she played us. Bianca looked up from her laptop, unruffled by his entrance. Stacks of surveillance photos and documents covered her desk, evidence of a sleepless night. Sit down, Luca, she said firmly. You need to see this. He remained standing, tension radiating from his shoulders. Bianca pulled up security footage on her screen, turning it to face him. Watch carefully. This is from the handoff point yesterday. The grainy video showed Addie meeting someone in an alley. The figure took something from her, the documents Enzo had demanded, but their face was obscured. Now look at this. Bianca switched to a different feed, showing the same person entering one of Enzo's known properties 2 hours earlier. That's Marco Rossi. He's been on Enzo's payroll for months, working as a plant. Luca's hands gripped the back of the chair, knuckles white. What are you saying? She was framed, Luca. Enzo orchestrated the whole thing. He used her friend as leverage, knowing she'd try to handle it alone rather than risk anyone else getting hurt. Bianca's voice softened. She didn't betray you. She was trying to protect people. The chair creaked under Luca's grip. His face went through a cascade of emotions. Disbelief, hope, and finally murderous rage. Get me everything on Enzo's operation, every safe house, every lieutenant, every fucking coffee shop he visits. He pulled out his phone, barking orders to his security team. I want teams ready in 30 minutes. We're burning his empire to the ground. Across town, Addie huddled in her motel room, jumping at every sound in the hallway. She'd barely slept, plagued by nightmares of Enzo's smirking face and Luca's cold fury. Her phone lay silent on the nightstand. She'd turned it back on, hoping for news about her friend Sophia, but afraid of what else she might find. The morning news reported multiple gang-related incidents across the city. Warehouses burning, shots fired, men arrested. She knew what that meant. Luca was moving against Enzo, and the streets weren't safe for anyone connected to either side. Back at Verone headquarters, Bianca coordinated the attacks from her command center. Screens showed various teams breaching Enzo's properties, while interrogation reports streamed in from captured lieutenants. The warehouse on Monroe Street is clear, a voice crackled over the radio. Found evidence of recent document storage, but it's been cleaned out. Luca paced behind her, radiating lethal energy. He'd personally led 3 raids already, leaving broken bodies and terrified testimonies in his wake. Each dead end only fueled his fury. Sir, another guard entered with a tablet. We found something interesting in Marco Rossi's phone records. Multiple calls to a burner phone traced to the Diamond District. The jewelry store front, Bianca murmured. It's one of his oldest holdings. Get me surveillance on that block, Luca ordered. Every angle, every entrance. Hours passed. The sun set over a city holding its breath. Smoke rose from various locations where Luca's forces had struck, while police scanners buzzed with reports they couldn't explain. In her motel room, Addie paced. She'd spent the day alternating between hiding behind drawn curtains and compulsively checking news sites. The violence was escalating. She knew she should leave town, disappear completely. But something held her here. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your friend is safe. These men dropped her off an hour ago. Relief made her knees weak. Sophia was okay. Whatever game Enzo was playing, at least he'd kept that promise. Night fell over the city. In Bianca's office, screens glowed with thermal imaging of the Diamond District building. Movement patterns suggested increased activity in the basement level. Multiple heat signatures, the tech reported, consistent with a command center setup. Luca checked his weapons methodically. Gun, backup piece, knife. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes burned with predatory focus. "Sir," Bianca said quietly, "before you go, there's something else you should see." She handed him a file. "We found this in Marco's phone. It's a photo from 7 years ago." Luca opened it. His breath caught. The image showed a younger Addie with a man, the same man who'd been at her apartment, who'd sent her running to Luca's protection. The man who, according to the attached notes, had worked for his sister during her betrayal. The pieces clicked into place. Enzo hadn't just targeted Addie randomly. He'd chosen her specifically, knowing her history would make Luca doubt her, knowing his old wounds would blind him to the truth. "Bianca," Luca's voice was deadly calm, "make sure our guest rooms are ready. All of them. When this is done, I'm bringing them home." He turned to leave, vengeance in every line of his body. His men fell in behind him, a small army moving with lethal purpose. "Luca!" Bianca called, after him. "Remember, Enzo wants you emotional. Don't give him what he wants." He paused in the doorway, one hand on his gun. "What I'm going to give him," he said softly, "is exactly what he deserves." The night air carried hints of smoke and sirens as Luca's convoy moved through the streets. In her motel room, Addie finally fell into an exhausted sleep, unaware of the forces moving through the darkness. And somewhere in the Diamond District, Enzo waited, thinking he'd won, not knowing that every shadow outside his door belonged to death wearing Luca's face. Dawn hadn't yet broken when Luca's men surrounded the Diamond District building. The streets were empty, perfect for what would come next. He adjusted his leather gloves, eyes fixed on the jewelry store's darkened windows. "Teams in position," crackled his earpiece. "Waiting on your mark." Luca drew his gun, the weight familiar in his hand. "Take out the exterior guards." Silently. Shadows moved in the pre-dawn gloom. 4 of Enzo's men dropped without a sound. Efficient work by Luca's snipers. The entrance cameras went dark next, disabled by his tech team. "Clear to move," came the confirmation. Luca led the first team through the service entrance, their steps silent on the marble floor. The store's display cases gleamed dully, diamonds worth millions sleeping behind bulletproof glass. But they weren't here for jewelry. The basement access was hidden behind a false wall in the manager's office. As they descended the stairs, muffled voices drifted up. Luca recognized Enzo's cultured tones giving orders. "Sir," whispered one of his men. "Heat signatures show 15 hostiles, plus 2 civilians in the East Room." Sophia. Luca's jaw clenched. Enzo had kept Addie's friend close, insurance against exactly this kind of assault. That would be his first mistake of many. They reached the bottom of the stairs. Luca gave the hand signal, and smoke grenades rolled into the main room. Chaos erupted instantly. Gunfire exploded in the confined space. Enzo's men, caught off guard, fired blindly through the smoke. Luca's team, wearing tactical gear with night vision, moved with precision. Bodies hit the floor in quick succession. Luca advanced through the firefight, single-minded in his purpose. A guard rushed him with a knife. Luca broke his arm and used him as a shield against incoming bullets before dropping him. Another tried to radio for backup. Luca's bullet found his throat before he could speak. "East Room secured," came the report. "Civilian safety confirmed." That left only one target. Luca kicked down a door marked private to find Enzo trying to delete files from a laptop. Papers were already burning in a metal trash can. "I wondered when you'd come," Enzo said smoothly, though his eyes darted to the exits. "Still so predictably protective of your little baker." Luca shot the laptop, making Enzo flinch. "The evidence. Now." "You mean this?" Enzo pulled out his phone, showing the doctored photos of Addie supposedly betraying Luca. "Quite convincing work, wasn't it? Amazing what good editing can do." "The original files," Luca growled. Enzo's smile turned ugly. "You know, your sister said you were always too serious, too rigid, too caught up in your precious control." Luca crossed the room in 2 strides and slammed Enzo into the wall, forearm against his throat. "My sister? Who do you think gave me the idea?" Enzo wheezed. "She told me all about your abandonment issues before she disappeared. Said the quickest way to destroy you would be to make you trust someone, then prove they betrayed you, just like she did." Rage burned through Luca's veins, but he kept his voice cold. "You used an innocent woman to settle a score?" "Innocent?" Enzo laughed harshly. "Do you know who her ex worked for? Your precious Addie was connected to your sister's operation. I just capitalized on existing circumstances." Understanding hit Luca like a physical blow. Addie's ex had been one of his sister's men. That's why she'd recognized the photo in his office, why she'd pulled away after seeing it. Not because she was guilty, but because she'd feared exactly this, being caught between old wounds and present dangers. The files, Luca repeated, pressing harder. Last chance. Enzo's hand crept toward his jacket. Luca saw the glint of metal and moved first, slamming Enzo's head back. The hidden gun clattered to the floor. Wrong choice. Luca's voice was soft, deadly. What happened next was quick and final. When Luca emerged from the office minutes later, his men carefully didn't look at his bloodied knuckles or the silence behind him. Sir, his lieutenant approached. We found this in the safe. He held out a USB drive and stack of papers. The original surveillance photos proving the handoff was staged, and documentation of all Enzo's plants in our organization. Luca took them, already turning toward the stairs. The friend, safe, being transported to medical for checkup, then to a secure location. And the cleanup? In progress. No traces will remain. Dawn was breaking as they emerged from the building. Luca checked his phone. No messages from his surveillance team about Addie's location. Fear, sharp and unfamiliar, twisted in his gut. She was alone out there, unprotected, maybe thinking she needed to run because of Enzo's manipulations. Sir, his lieutenant waited by the car. The teams are ready for debrief. Handle it, Luca cut him off, already moving toward his personal vehicle. I have somewhere else to be. He peeled away from the curb, the rising sun painting the city in shades of gold. Somewhere in this sprawling maze of streets, Addie was hiding. His Addie, who'd faced down his anger without flinching. Who'd chosen to sacrifice everything to protect her friend, knowing it would cost her his trust. Who'd walked away rather than beg to be believed. His hands tightened on the steering wheel as he pressed the accelerator. He had to find her before she disappeared completely. Had to make this right before the dawn fully broke and she was gone like morning mist. Enzo's blood still stained his shirt cuffs as he drove, but for once Luca didn't care about the mess. All that mattered was reaching her, holding her, proving that this time love wouldn't end in betrayal. This time he'd fight to keep what was his. The neon vacancy sign cast a sickly red glow through the thin motel curtains. Addie sat on the edge of the sagging bed, her small bag still packed beside her. She hadn't bothered to unpack. What was the point when you were always ready to run? A sharp knock made her jump, then another, more insistent. Addie, Luca's voice, rough with something she couldn't name. Open the door. Her heart stuttered. She considered pretending she wasn't there, but the light seeping under the door would betray her. With trembling fingers, she turned the lock. Luca stood in the doorway, his usual pristine appearance disheveled. Blood dotted his white shirt cuffs. His eyes, when they met hers, held a storm of emotions she'd never seen before. I'm sorry, she whispered, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I never meant to. Don't. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The small room seemed to shrink around his presence. I know everything, about Enzo, about your friend, about the setup. Addie wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. How? Because I made him tell me? His jaw clenched. Before I ended him? The implications of that statement hung in the air between them. Addie should have been frightened, knowing what he was capable of. Instead, she felt a terrible relief. I found the photos in your office, she admitted quietly. Of your sister, of him, my ex. I recognized him from when he worked for her. She swallowed hard. I was afraid you'd think I was part of it somehow. That's why I pulled away. I know that now. Luca moved closer, his movements careful like he was approaching a spooked animal. I let old fears blind me. When Enzo sent those doctored photos, I believed the worst because it was easier than trusting. I had to save my friend, Addie whispered, but I never betrayed you. I would never. I know. His voice cracked on the words. Christ, Addie, I know, and I handled everything wrong. I let you walk away thinking. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. I'm possessive, controlling. I see threats everywhere because I've learned the hard way that they exist. But with you, he closed the distance between them, cupping her face in his hands. His touch was achingly gentle for someone who'd spilled blood hours before. With you, I'm terrified, he confessed. Not of betrayal anymore, of losing you, of pushing you away with my need to protect, to control. You make me want to be better, but I don't know how. Tears spilled down Addie's cheeks. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I just needed you to see me, really see me. Not as a liability or a possession, but as Everything, he finished. You're everything. The dam broke. Addie sobbed, all the fear and tension of the past days pouring out. Luca pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling her head while the other wrapped around her waist. I love you, he murmured into her hair. Probably since that first morning when you defied me in my own kitchen. Definitely since you kissed me on your terms, not mine, and watching you walk away nearly destroyed me. Addie clutched his shirt, breathing in his familiar scent. I love you too, she whispered. Even when it terrifies me, even knowing what you are, what you do. Maybe because of it. His hands tightened on her. Then never run from me again. Whatever comes, we face it together. I'll learn to listen before I react, to trust before I doubt. Just stay. She pulled back enough to meet his gaze. Promise me something first. Anything. Promise you'll remember I'm strong enough to stand beside you, not behind you. That I choose this. Choose you, knowing exactly what it means. Instead of answering, he kissed her. It was different from their previous kisses. Deeper, hungrier, but also more tender, like he was trying to pour every promise into the press of his lips against hers. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, he rested his forehead against hers. You're the strongest person I know, he said softly. Strong enough to run when you had to. Strong enough to love someone like me. Strong enough to come back. I didn't come back, she pointed out. You found me. I'll always find you. He brushed her tears away with his thumbs. But I'd rather never have to look. Stay with me, Addie. Let me keep you safe. Let me love you the way you deserve. Fresh tears spilled, but these were different. Healing tears, washing away the hurt and doubt. Yes, she whispered. Luca's smile was fierce and tender all at once. He bent down, scooping her into his arms, bridal style. Then let's go home. Maya's been asking for you. Maya? Addie's heart clenched. Is she okay? She's fine, worried about you. She knows better than anyone how good you are at taking care of others. It's time someone took care of you. As he carried her toward the door, Addie rested her head against his shoulder. What about my bag? I'll send someone for it. He kissed her forehead. Right now, I'm not letting you go. The neon sign flickered as they emerged into the night. Luca's car waited in the shadows, his driver discreetly averting his eyes as they approached. The city glittered around them, full of dangers and possibilities. But Addie wasn't afraid anymore. She was exactly where she belonged. Autumn sunlight slanted through the bakery windows, painting golden stripes across the freshly mopped floor. After months of rebuilding their relationship and creating a safer world, the Sweet Dreams Bakery had become Addie's sanctuary, a place that was entirely hers, even if Luca's initial funding had helped make it possible. She wiped down the display cases, already empty, after another successful day. The bell above the door chimed, and she didn't need to look up to know who it was. Luca's presence filled any room he entered, though these days it felt less like a storm and more like warmth. You're early, she said, hiding her smile. The meeting finished ahead of schedule. His footsteps were quiet on the tiles as he approached. And I missed you. Addie finally turned, taking in the sight of him. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves, little signs that he felt comfortable enough here to let his guard down. You saw me this morning. Too long ago. His eyes tracked her movements as she finished cleaning. Maya's with Teresa, finishing her homework. She wants to sleep at the mansion tonight. Of course she does. You spoil her. I spoil both of you. He leaned against the counter, watching her work with that intensity that still made her breath catch. And you let me sometimes. She tossed the cleaning cloth into a bucket. Only sometimes. I still pay my own rent. Above a bakery I technically own. His smile was teasing now. Though you're right, you run this place entirely on your own. I'm just the admiring investor who happens to be in love with the owner. An investor who posts armed guards outside every night. Old habits. He straightened, moving closer. Speaking of which, I knew you were hovering for a reason. Addie crossed her arms, but there was no real annoyance in it. What is it? Luca's expression turned serious. There's been some activity on the west side. Nothing direct, nothing threatening, but I've doubled security for a while. Months ago, this would have scared her. Now she just nodded, appreciating his honesty. Thank you for telling me. Always. He reached for her hand, thumb brushing over her knuckles. I promised you truth, even when it's difficult. You deserve to know what's happening in your world. Our world, she corrected softly. His eyes darkened with pleasure. Yes, ours. Though I'm still learning to share control. You're doing better. She stepped closer, letting him pull her against his chest. You haven't threatened any of my customers in weeks. That one man was looking at you too long. He was deciding between muffins. He was deciding something, certainly. Luca's arm slipped around her waist, possessive but gentle. But you handled it perfectly well on your own. I'm learning to watch without interfering. Addie laughed against his shirt. Is that what you call posting Dominic across the street every afternoon? Protection isn't interference. He pressed a kiss to her temple. And you agreed to that arrangement yourself. She had. It was part of their careful balance. His need to protect, her need for independence. They'd spent months finding this equilibrium, learning to trust each other's strengths. Ready to go home? He asked softly. Home. Such a simple word for such a complex reality. She split her time between the apartment above the bakery and his mansion, and somehow both felt right. Let me grab my coat. Maya's probably wondering where we are. They locked up together, a familiar routine now. Outside, the evening air carried the first hint of winter. Luca's car waited at the curb, but they often walked on nights like this, enjoying the peaceful moments between responsibilities. I saw the books this morning, he said, as they started down the sidewalk. The bakery's doing well. Did you think it wouldn't? I never doubted you. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. I just enjoy seeing you succeed on your own terms. Not entirely on my own. She squeezed his hand. You gave me the chance. You would have found a way without me. You're the strongest person I know, remember? They walked in comfortable silence for a while, both aware of the security detail following at a discreet distance. Another compromise? She'd accepted their presence, and he'd agreed they'd stay far enough back to give privacy. Sometimes, Addie said softly, I think about that night, when Maya ran to find you. Luca's stride hitched slightly. Do you regret it? No. She stopped walking, turning to face him. I regret that it took me so long to trust you, to trust us. His free hand came up to cup her cheek. We needed that time, to learn each other, to make sure this was real. And is it? Real? More real than anything I've ever known. His thumb traced her bottom lip. You changed everything, Addie. You and Maya. You made me want to be better, but you also showed me I was already more than my worst impulses. They resumed walking, and soon they could see Teresa's house ahead. Maya burst out the front door before they reached it, running to meet them with homework papers clutched in her hand. Look! She thrust a math test at them proudly. I got an A. Of course you did, clever girl. Luca lifted her up with his free arm, settling her on his hip despite her being almost too big for it now. We'll celebrate at home. Maya grabbed Addie's hand as Luca set her down, positioning herself between them. Together they walked the last few blocks to the mansion, Maya chattering about her day, swinging their joined hands. At the gates, Luca paused. You're mine, he whispered in Addie's ear. Forever, and only because you want to be. Maya tugged them forward, eager for dinner and celebration, but Addie caught Luca's gaze. In his eyes she saw everything, the violence he was capable of, the tenderness he showed only to them, the love that had transformed them both. She'd chosen this life, this man, this family they'd built together, and she chose it again every day, freely and without reservation,